Welcome to the Dragon's Library, your source for games, movies, shows, and more. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Dragon's Library. Today, we're reviewing something kind of bad again, but also in kind of a way it's not something kind of good. It has both good and bad within it. Yin and yang. Perfectly balanced. Not perfectly, no. This is a great movie. It's a popcorn flick. So today I just got back from seeing Moonfall, the new Roland Emmerich disaster movie. So he blew up the world last time with 2012. I do not count Independence Day Resurgence. If you want to talk about that movie, you can go somewhere else and talk about it. I'm not talking about it here. Disappointment. But no, this one's interesting. I'm not going to say it's terrible. It's definitely his movie that you will care the least about the people in it. But then again, you don't see a Roland Emmerich disaster movie for the people in it. So, all right, let's get back to this. So, for those of you who don't know, this is one of those disaster movies. You've probably seen something like this. You know, you have a family trying to get back together. They're separated, and a massive disaster breaks out. Maybe an earthquake, maybe a tsunami. Maybe the world's flooding, like in 2012, one of his other movies. You've all seen these movies before. You've heard about them. They're the ones you constantly see those clips from, where the character is like running away from a giant ravine that's collapsing behind them, or whatever. They're popcorn flicks. Let's be real. They're just popcorn flicks, and they're all right. They're fine. They work. It's. I'm not sure I've ever expressed this. It's really difficult talking about something that's just average. Like, what do you grab there? Although this is a little weird because it's more of average because there's some really things I really liked about this, and there were things I just wanted me in my head to just go like, why? So let's start with the main review section. So in the first two scenes, we have some astronauts in space, 3 of them. There are 2 of them fixing a satellite, the others inside piloting the shuttle. And they're just being up there to do some, satellite maintenance and repairs. This is several years ago in the past. And they're attacked by this swarm of, chips, like nanobot style AI thing. It wrecks the ship, and only 2 of the astronauts survive. The other one goes flying off into deep space and is grabbed by the strange creature. The other one was knocked down in the initial impact, so only one of them saw it, but he managed to stabilize the shuttle and get him back under control. However, when they get back to Earth, since the only other witness is, unconscious, nobody believes him, they take his footage from his camera, don't release it, and they basically chalk it up to human error and disown him as, a crackpot. His life kind of goes to shit. His marriage falls apart. They lose their house. They have to roll around a lot. His wife he marries, he's, separated from them. Their kid is acting out a lot and just got arrested with drugs in the car. The world's kind of going to shit. Meanwhile, we have, the benevolent conspiracy theorist. Okay. Before we go any further in this review, I need to make something very clear. I hate this archetype. So, in movies like this, and you had it in the recent Godzilla movie, and it was one of the things I hated most about Godzilla vs. Kong, conspiracy theorists are annoying. They're just so annoying. Conspiracy theories can be fun and dumb at times, but the people who get, obsessively into them do not need validation from the media. At all. I know it's just a character archetype we've had around for a while. The guy that nobody believes. And it's kind of blurred with scientists, but it's gotten a bit more into the conspiracy podcaster. And they do actively admit that he's very weird, but they paint him as the good one, all the other weirdos, but he's the one who actually knows what he's talking about. And I'm like, he thinks the moon is a superstructure. Yes, he's right, but this is a sci-fi world. Oh my god, it's dumb. Again, at least they, these things always do try and either paint their conspiracy theorists as kind of an idiot and the main protagonist they're with, like in Godzilla, is the more so smart one, or they paint them as essentially more intelligent than a lot of the other people who believe this shit. And that's what this one tries to do. And I just hate this character. I hate him so much. I loathe him. Like, he's not, I don't believe we actually landed on the moon crazy, but he is, you know, the 2 minutes where there was just silence was actually a cover-up thing. And it's like, it's that middling level of conspiracy theorists where they're not like full-blown bananas yet. And I hate it. I hate this archetype so much. Every time I see it, I just want to grab that person out of the screen and go, in our world, you're a crazy person. It's only in fiction where any of this is validated. And I hate that some people seeing you might think their delusions are valid. It's just frustrating. On a personal level, to me, it is very frustrating. I mean, I get it. It's an archetype. I probably shouldn't be getting so attached to it. It's just, I had to get it off my test. I hate this archetype. It just rubs me the wrong way so hard. Deep breaths, James. Deep breaths. So, that aside, now that I have that out of my system, thank you for listening to that. Anyway, he's determined, he works at this university, and he's been regularly sneaking into his professor's office and, you know, personing him on the phone, so, you know, already not a great start, although he is pretty smart, to get updated stuff on the moon's position, because he has reasons in this universe now to believe that it is a superstructure. Okay, for those of you who aren't sci-fi nerds, superstructures are hypothetical constructs that humanity or an advanced civilization could one day build. They're basically structures that exist on planetary scale. One of these, for example, is something called a Dyson sphere, which is what he believes the moon is. A Dyson sphere is a structure, like a massive one, composed around a small or dying star, most likely a white dwarf. These stars have a lot of energy, so if you were to completely surround it and basically use that energy very efficiently, you could conceivably produce insane amounts of power. These things are what advance civilizations to like type 2 civilization status. The first is a type 1 civilization can use all the planet resources. For reference, we're only at type 0.7 currently. And a type 2 can use their whole galaxies, using their sun efficiently. So, that's the main thing there. And, you know, of course, after that little swarm of nanobots attacked the astronauts, it started drilling into the surface of the moon. You know, you put 2 and 2 together early on because they're all about, like, the superstructurists or whatever they want to call their little weird conspiracy cult thing. You quickly realize, okay, so this is the direction they're going in. It's a superstructure, and this thing is drilling into it. And that's when they start noticing the drift. The moon's rotation is decaying. It's falling in on a planet, essentially. And they believe this thing is, you know, is responsible. Now, he finds out just before NASA, but that's because he was, you know, looking for this stuff for years and was studying it very closely. He was actually looking for deviations like this. NASA finds out pretty quickly after that, because, you know, they are NASA. They do pretty good work. And they immediately send some people up there to figure out what the hell's going on, because this is a pretty, like, you know, this is a decaying orbit, and in 3 weeks it will get close enough for it to break apart and rain debris down on our planet, which is a terrifying proposition. So they send up a shuttle, you know, the best and brightest, all the countries coming together, that kind of thing. And they get murdered. Like, hardcore murdered by this thing. However, when it comes up to murder them, the moon briefly starts returning to its own orbit. So this thing is directly responsible, and distracting it, you know, makes the moon start orbiting properly again. However, briefly. After this, you know, everything's in full tilt. We're trying to figure out what's going on. The other astronaut lady who got promoted because the director of the head of the NASA quit when he realized the world was about to end. It's like, I'm gonna get my family to a bunker. You can do what the hell you want. So the female astronaut who was in that mission, who, you know, kind of disowned her former friend and partner in the hearings, has been going for this position for years, so he says, fine, you can have it. I'm getting the hell out of here and getting to a bunker with my family. And she starts investigating what the hell's going on. Eventually, she comes across the camera footage from her partner's helmet and just realizes, holy shit, he actually did see something. This is the thing he saw up there is the thing that just murdered all our astronauts, because they actually did have live footage there. And, they quickly realize, okay, we're going to get him back. He has the most experience with this thing. He also has another reason to be here, aside from being one of the living people that's encountered this thing before. Before he was disowned by NASA, he was actually pretty well renowned amongst them for being one of the only people to land a shuttle without computer assistance. And it's determined that through going over what's all the events that have happened, they determined that it's not specifically humans that it's after. It's after, they eventually determine it. At first, they think it's just electronics. There's a bit more to it than that. But essentially, yes, any computing power it can detect. And it will go after any biological organisms inside an area with lots of computing power. I.e., it's looking for technology plus life, which means it's essentially looking for humans. Or at least other advanced civilizations. And it's actually part of an interesting twist that happens later in the movie that I'm not going to spoil here because it's mildly clever. I will give Roland Emmerich this. That I did not see coming. I thought it was going to be, I'm not going to say what I thought it was going to be because then you're going to start thinking what it probably is. But that was clever. I won't deny it. All in all, this is, that's what happens. You have lots of disaster stuff. There's some really cool imagery in this movie. I really like it. Visually, this is an impressive movie. If only the dialogue didn't suck so hard. Maybe not all, 90% of the characters' lines in this movie feel like placeholder dialogue. This is describing what we want the dialogue to be, It's I know I'm your stepfather, but I do love you. I will always be a father to you. It's okay, but we barely know him. We saw him 2 scenes, and he hasn't interacted with this kid at all on screen. And I feel no emotional connection to any of you because there are 10 more characters than there need to be. Also, there's just a really bad thing with this movie, just not wanting to explain stuff until midway through. Especially the relationship between characters. For example, there was this interesting scene in the beginning of the movie. So you had the astronaut lady going to work in NASA only to find out about the moon falling. And she gets up really early to get called in. And she's going down, she checks in on her kids, goes downstairs, and there's this, other woman down there. She, slightly younger than her, but I was like, oh wait, are they married? Are they going to do LGBTQ relationship as just, a factual, it's there kind of thing? No, she's married to another husband who works in the military, isn't there at all. So the reason this character is there is because she's and get this, Chinese foreign exchange student who's working as an intern for NASA and is staying with the person who is next in line to be the director of NASA. Yep. That's something that happens. And from what I can tell, it is purely to provide, marketability in the Chinese box office. That's all it's there for. You've seen this character in a dozen other movies at this point. The random China representative that shows up. And I have no problem with Asian American actors getting some stuff. I mean, seriously, they need to get more stuff. But, I have a problem with the way they just threw her in here. I would have actually really liked her to be in the movie at, the astronaut's flight. That would have actually been really cool. I would have liked her in just any capacity. But she's basically just there for, in the background for the entire, we're trying to get the kids to safety scenes. And she serves just basically no narrative purpose. I'm not even kidding. You could remove her from this movie, full-on Iron Man 2 style, just remove her, edit her out of the backgrounds. And I don't think I'd be able to tell aside from, all you'd have to do is, just not have one character die a little early on and have them die, midway through a scene where they save someone else. And the saving them could have literally been someone else was going to go do it, but she said, no, let me. And I'm wait, so that person could have just done this, and then everything would have been fine. This movie if you didn't exist, another person would have done the only one thing you ever did, and everything would have happened the exact same way. Like, it's really dumb how pointless her character is. And I was actually interested when I first saw her, because, that was an interesting idea. But, and it's just like, they don't even explain her until midway through the movie. I'm just like, why is this character here? I can't think of another reason aside from just marketability in the Chinese market. Which is disappointing, because if you're going to give her a role, just give her something to do, But, aside from all that, it's an alright movie. The plot's pretty dumb, aside from, one interesting twist that I will give the writers. And you're here mostly for spectacle. And, this is some spectacle. I'm going to get into some more details later on. But trust me, this is the kind of movie I just want to, cut out the, I want to mute dialogue, but not mute period, but just mute dialogue. And cut out all the boring scenes. And just watch this as, a disaster. Full-on disaster movie. Just some of the things they do with the moon and its effect on gravity are genuinely cool and visually impressive. And I wish there had been more of it, honestly. I will give that movie this. They know how to make a disaster movie. Seriously, some of the shots are just beautiful. The takeoff for the second rocket launch is definitely the most impressive with the giant wave. Oh, man. Remind me of something out of... God, it's just amazing. Fantastic work. Seriously, animators, give yourself a, clap. Applause. I give you my applause. Seriously. Good work. But as that's the movie. It's alright. It's a popcorn flick. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Visually impressive stuff makes up for, bland, uninteresting dialogue and forgettable characters. All in all, yeah. Ironically, one of the only characters who I can even vaguely remember is that annoying conspiracy theorist guy, and I hated him so much. You're here for the disaster, you really are. Anyway, on to the spoiler section. So, this was interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about the animation first, because I actually want to really get into that a bit. So, the animation, at many parts, reminded me of Zendikar from Magic the Gathering. I'm not sure how much you guys know of it, but Zendikar is this magical world where the magic causes the land to constantly shift and roll around. There are floating islands everywhere, and even the water is constantly going through water spouts. And there are a few scenes in this that just made me think of, that looks like something out of a card from Zendikar, Battle for Zendikar or something. It is just beautiful. Or the new Zendikar Rising set. It's just, really gorgeous shots. There's this really cool scene where they're trying to do an emergency takeoff for the rocket in order to get to the moon for the, so they can get to the third act. And the sea starts pulling away as the moon rotates, because as the moon gets closer and closer, the moon's rotation gets faster and faster and goes around the Earth faster. So even though it's daytime, the moon's about to start rising. And the water pulls away from the shore, leaving these oil refineries just sitting there. And it piles up into these giant pillars. It's like the whole thing is contracting back into a hand reaching for the sky. And as the moon dawns with its magnificent glory, they reach for it, though they can never... It is gorgeous. Those shots were amazing, and I loved it. That final thing where they were trying to launch the rocket as this wave comes crashing down as the moon passes over and drags the water forward from a, receding tide to a flooding tide. Oh my god. That was some really good action right there. That was just great. That's what you go to a disaster movie for. And it was so inventive using the water like that. Not just having it, flood, but having it, twist as the water tries to pull away from Earth's gravity and into the moon's. That's impressive. I'm just going to say it. In addition to that, there are also other scenes where you have things like meteors blasting all over the place, or the way that objects on Earth, especially lighter ones that don't have as much gravitational force being applied to them due to their low mass, are affected by it. There are scenes where when the moon starts rising, things will start, sliding towards that direction, so you'll be in a building, And it almost feels like the whole world has been tilted on its side. Chairs start sliding into the ground. There are just subtle things like that. It doesn't like pick cars up, but it makes them roll or twist, like really heavy winds. And it's almost like people are literally turning the world on its side, but it's just the gravity of the moon influencing the forces acting on your body. It's just, these are really cool concepts, and I wish they were in a better movie, honestly. A lot of the visuals in this movie are just genuinely impressive, and I liked it. I loved the way they visualized the Dyson Sphere inside the moon. It was just really cool. And some of the concepts are genuinely interesting. Again, it's just in a boring plot. Now, time to get to that twist. Because I did mention a twist, and I said I'd talk about it, so let's talk about it. So, at first, it's like, okay, so there was a Dyson Sphere, super civilization. Okay, so this is like the whole Fermi paradox. This thing seems to kill advanced civilizations with life, so maybe this thing is responsible for the death of other alien life before us, and the reason we haven't found any of their ruins is because they migrated to superstructures like this before they were eradicated. Maybe this is like where some are living. There were some mentions by the superstructurists or the conspiracy theorists that were the other guy that these things were arcs or living quarters. So maybe there were aliens in the moon. I mean, Naruto did it. So we looked for that, but it's empty. Now, there is a strange door, and it opens up for the crew when they're running away from the evil, swarm. After they fail to be able to set the EMP off and are almost killed. And it manages to change the environment into something humans can breathe. Oh, that's interesting. And it abducts one of them and talks to him in like a telepathic mind. He's talking with the AI in there. And it reveals it wasn't exactly aliens, but it also was. Except the aliens were us, or our ancestors. So the gimmick of their sci-fi premise is human civilization evolved on a completely different world. A long, long time ago, like it's implied like millions of years ago. We see this sphere in a flash forward forming the Earth. So this is like, millions, hundreds of thousands of millions of years before we came along. Hundreds of million years before we came along, human civilization had reached its peak. War and conflict were things of the past. And we got an AI to run everything. Yep, it's a Skynet Horizon Zero Dawn event, people. So, the AI went rogue and started slaughtering all of humanity. Realizing they couldn't defeat it, they decided instead to work in secret on moons that would carry genetic data, not stored through biological life, since this thing kills anything around technology and life. And as a result, they attempted to basically seed the universe anew with life, so they could, rebuild maybe in another galaxy. And that's actually a pretty good idea, especially if they were able to jump over a galaxy or two. For those of you who don't know, due to the fact that galaxies move and the universe expands, eventually several galaxies or galaxy clusters nearby us will not be able to be reached by us. So if they sent this somewhere else to one of these other galaxy clusters on a long journey and was able to make it there before they, branched away too much, it would be in a new galaxy that this AI could never reach, which is actually a smart idea. I'm not sure if they moved to a new galaxy cluster, if they mentioned that. I might be giving the writers too much credit. But it is actually a plausible idea to escape a Grey Goose scenario. Literally use the universe and galaxy, expansions in order to put the speed of light between you and the AI. Fascinating. No, I'm genuinely saying that's actually clever. If I'm remembering correctly, that's a genuinely clever solution that I've actually never seen in a sci-fi. It's like, yeah, so we have a killer AI hunting us down. We're all dead, right? And even if we seed this galaxy with life, he's going to kill it. What if we send it to another galaxy cluster? In a few hundred years, they won't even be able to reach there. We've definitely lost some galaxy clusters already. So if this happened that long ago. Now, obviously, what happened was the AA got there before any of the other moons could be finished. Only one of them was finished, and it was sent off to its destination. A little galaxy, our galaxy, our current one, anyway. And it used the debris close in the habitable range near the sun in order to create a planet capable of sustaining life. It then basically introduced various genetic combinations into the planet and helped essentially program it. It ran through a script of what it was likely a interpretation of how life developed on their world. They even had, humans develop like normal. This was also, once humans were developed enough, they could reach the moon and figure out what was happening, and it would give them their new technology along with the warnings of AI. And since this is obviously a good AI, teach them how to not make AIs that won't, want them all dead and are super self-aware and evil. Unfortunately, though, as we can see, at least a small segment of the AI managed to send something there before the distance got too great. It did manage to find where the moon is. Now, if they can deal with this small swarm, they might not have to deal with it ever again if it didn't send any more to this galaxy cluster. So, they had to deal with it. Now, the EMP is actually still a good idea. You blast it, all the chips die, and since the main AI is too far away, they'll never know. This place will remain secret. Meanwhile, this thing has been smothering the sun, preventing the light from reaching all the Dyson Sphere's solar collectors, which is actually pretty smart because it's causing the device to fail and fall into Earth's gravity, because the whole thing was using really advanced technology to suppress its gravitational pull, which allowed it to maintain that elliptical orbit and basically faked having a lower mass. But with the higher mass, it gets pulled in. And it's basically depriving the station of the power it needs to maintain that. Which, again, all very smart. Again, I wish it wasn't attached to a stupid human plot, but hey, sci-fi premises are interesting. Anyway, they go in. The main astronaut decides to make a final sacrifice to, save the world. But of course, we've been trying to make the conspiracy theorist into a hero this whole time and making him sympathetic. So instead, he gets to do it. And then they just kick themselves in the feet. So he makes a heroic sacrifice, which, I'm fine with him dying. Definitely it was nice. Although it really is weird how they try to make me like, you care about this character. No, I'm like, no, I still hate him. Sorry, I still do. He's proven himself competent. I just cannot stand him personally. But no. They win the day. The world is basically a giant ruin. I mean, from what we can tell, the Chrysler building from New York, the top half anyway, is somewhere in the Colorado Rockies. The world has been decimated by constant meteor showers, the effects of, multiple weeks of the moon's gravity increasing, causing massive tidal damage, worldwide floods, and they're doing, the world will survive. I'm like, the world is a freaking wasteland! The government was so desperate they were about to start nuking the moon. Yeah, that's actually something they thought about doing. Nuking the moon that's raining down on you. There are even multiple people that call out the government, the military on this. They're like, are you people morons? You're going to nuke the thing that's going to fall on our heads. Have you ever heard of fallout? You're literally going to have us rain nuclear radiation down on the world for years. And the excuse that's given is we're trying to think about short-term survival, not the long-term consequences. Isn't that humanity in a nutshell? But there's also the husband of the the new NASA head, and he's just okay, he makes the dumbest decision. So his wife blasted off. His kid, she told him she was gonna get her kid to a bunker, but she left it with her estranged colleague's criminal son and her student, assistant student to drive to the bunker in the middle of what is regularly described as anarchy with armed looters everywhere and the moon raining down on them. She just gives them a car instead of alright, this baffles my mind. They had a plane of other people they sent away before because they thought all was lost moment, and then the small group decided to do a small manned exploration. Why didn't they send the kid, the student, and the son to the frickin' to the freaking base then. I mean, I guess they couldn't have them hole up with the main character's wife and her step-husband and have those dumb, boring scenes there. Ugh, gods. Although you did have another cool concept there, because the moon was getting closer, it was going to rip chunks of the atmosphere and reduce the amount of oxygen in the air. And that's actually pretty interesting. I liked that. Because it's not really a threat you can see. You're just suffocating. It's like, okay, that's cool. And so they main characters had to go to a ambulance station up in the mountains and get some oxygen tanks so that they would be able to move around freely during that time. It's like, oh, that's actually interesting, and that's an interesting solution. God, this movie though. That's the thing. I can't really say it's bad because I have good things to say about it. You know, I like a lot of the sci-fi concepts. I like the core concept of the movie, and I think a lot of its implementation of those concepts are good. Heck, it even actually surprised me with a twist. But the acting is just so half-hearted. Like, I think the conspiracy theorist guy is ironically doing the best job with his part, but I just don't like him that much as a character. So even if he's doing a good job, I still hate him. And the other characters, they all feel like they're being forced to be here, if that makes sense. Like, their lines are just like, is this good enough? Cool, it's the bare minimum. Let's get out of here. I got a paycheck to collect. Like, none of them seem like they want to be here. Even the stepdad. So the stepdad is the, he's the guy who plays the sidekick in the Ant-Man movies. You know, the Paul Rudd's friend who starts up that security business with the Russian guy. And he is just like, I've seen him in Ant-Man. He can do better than this. Like, all the actors are putting in bare minimum effort here. This is just atrocious. But yeah, that's about all I have to say on that. It's kind of good. Oh, wait, I haven't found... No, wait, I didn't finish. So there's one last scene at the very end that completely invalidates most of the premise of this movie. Like, it's so dumb on so many levels. So, okay, so they had to leave the main core of the sphere and go into the outer hull area, the tunnel that the machine thing drove in there. And they're arguing about who's supposed to do it. And the conspiracy theorist guys told to watch the back window for when they have to make their final decision. The main character wants to sacrifice himself in the EMP blast if it's upgraded by the facility to do more damage, make sure to take the AI out. However, the conspiracy theorist guy gets in there when he sees it coming. He decides not to tell the others. He gets in, locks the doors, and releases the, pod. And he waits until just the right moment and blows up the EMP. It's been amplified, so it's more of an actual bomb in addition to being an electromagnetic disruptor. And it kills the AI and actually the conspiracy theorist. However, after the, we'll rebuild ending, he wakes up in the weird mind place that the main character was in when he was communicating with the AI that told him about humanity's past. And it takes the form of his mother and his cat, and, they start talking. He's like, so am I dead? He's like, well, yes, but I scanned your consciousness and uploaded you. You are now part of the moon. He's like, I've made it. And I was just like, oh, fuck you. Also, doesn't this invalidate the entire premise of this movie? Like, I'm not even joking. I think this invalidates it. So he scanned his consciousness, all right? But the AI had trained itself pretty vigorously over the years because it didn't attack humans in general. It attacked them with technology. It even let it seemed physically incapable of actively detecting humans without technology. So if you could scan your consciousness and upload it to a computer or a robot body, why didn't the humans just use that and fight it off? Like, if it would have been confused and unable to detect them when they were worried it was going to start just attacking all technology, then it'd probably start ripping itself apart. Like, this is, like, weird. It's almost like they just wanted to add a plot hole, or they wanted to, give the conspiracy theorist a happy ending, because now he's part of the moon, he is obsessed over his whole life. It's just... I hate this ending. It's so stupid. It raises plot holes for no reason. We were done. We were finished. He died in heroic sacrifice. Goody for him. And it's just so frustrating. It literally defined everything I think about this movie. It's a cool premise, but then they screw it up with bad acting. It boggles my mind how you can have an actually interesting premise. Like, this sounded dumb. When I first saw the trailer for this, I thought this was dumb. Then I started seeing some of the newer trailers. I was like, you know what, this might actually be interesting. I started watching the movie, and I'm like, oh, this acting is horrendous. Then we get to some of the cool scenes, and I'm like, but this premise. And it's just like, I feel like the person who did Roland Emmerich is just not good at directing actors. From what I've seen in this, he's good with action. He's really good with action. But he doesn't know what the fuck to do with actors anymore. I don't know what the deal is here. So yeah, I apparently had a lot more to say about this movie than I thought I did. So that seems to be about it, though. I've run my course. Anyway, I'm currently still working on Pokemon's Legends Arceus, so we look forward to that in the future. I will also be getting my PS5 this week, and that means Horizon Forbidden West is going to be coming out soon. So we got lots of video game reviews coming up. Yeah! I've also found some new books I'm going to start reading. There's this new one that's coming out in March that I'm really excited for. It's called The Kaiju Preservation Society. And that title alone has got me interested. Sounds very me. I mean, I'm the person who read A Natural History of Dragons. Please listen to that review. So, scientific rigor over fantasy concepts have always been like my jam. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. But, yeah. I guess I will see you guys next time. Bye. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and thank you for listening to the Dragon's Library. Please, subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes. The Dragon's Library releases new episodes Tuesday and Friday each week, and you can follow us on Twitter at dragon_library2. If you want to suggest an episode topic, my email is in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for all your support.